Good morning, everyone. I think that we're ready to go now. My name is Doug Poland. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Rathje Woodward, and I'm chair of the Downtown Madison Inc. Board of Directors. Thank you for joining us this morning for the first ever virtual What's Up Downtown breakfast. Although not the same as our in-person events, we hope that this virtual venue will provide members the opportunity to stay engaged and informed during these times, and that we'll be back together, gathering at the beautiful Edgewater Hotel in the not so distant future. For this morning's event, we are thrilled to welcome City of Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway as our guest to talk about the latest information related to the city's response to COVID-19 and the impact on our city in downtown Madison. Before we start with this morning's program, I'd like to offer a few remarks on behalf of the Downtown Madison Inc. Board of Directors. First of all, thanks to all of you for continuing to support DMI and its important work in downtown Madison and throughout our city. More importantly, we hope that you and your loved ones are coping as well as can be expected under the circumstances. We want to express our appreciation and respect for all you are doing to care for your families, for your friends, loved ones, businesses, communities, and for yourselves as well. Madison is really an incredibly special and unique community, and our genuine care and compassion for one another is a great strength, especially in times like this. Second, I want to give you a little bit of a word about DMI and what we're doing. DMI has worked very hard over the past several years to bring ourselves into good shape operationally and fiscally. DMI is a very flexible organization, and we've really pivoted well to working remotely under the current circumstances. We've been holding meetings and events virtually, and if you've been able to attend any of them, you've seen how well they've run. Our regular committee meetings have been going off, as well as some other special events. There is a calendar of events at downtownmadison.org, our website, and you can log onto that and see all of the events that we have that we're offering. We've also pivoted quite well, working on a response to the COVID-19 outbreak. There are a number of resources that are listed on our website. You can go to the website and you can get links and information on conducting business and just other aspects of life in Madison during this time. Also, we are working with the Business Improvement District, the Chamber of Commerce, Destination Madison, and other local groups and partners on the economic impact and support for businesses during this time. This work wouldn't be possible without the incredible staff that DMI has, and I want to offer a word of thanks to them at this time in recognition. Jason Ilstrip, our president, John Chernilli, our vice president, Carol Ann Hewitt, our Director of Development, Madeline Plummer, our Office and Program Manager, and Hannah Stewart and Abby Buda, our policy researchers. It's really because of them that DMI is able to operate and work so robustly under very challenging circumstances. Our virtual office is open. You can contact our staff through the telephone numbers and email addresses on the website, so we are open for business and conducting business. Third, I want to, on behalf of the board, thank all of you, all of the Madisonians who are getting us and our entire community through this crisis. The mayor who is with us this morning and her staff have just done a phenomenal job. All of the city staff have been providing basic services during very challenging times. And I in particular want to give a shout out to the way that they conducted the election on April 7th under circumstances that are just really truly unprecedented and unbelievable. They did the best job in the state of any large municipality. And it was, I had a firsthand view of that. It was really something to witness. Thanks to the first responders and the emergency services providers for things like homeless shelters and meals, for getting our community through this, our healthcare workers, our restaurateurs, grocers, delivery workers, and all people in the food service industry who are helping to keep us fed during this time. So thanks to all of you for all you are doing to do your part to care for our community and to see us all through this challenge. I know we will come out of this stronger as a community for this. We're forging bonds and relationships right now that will carry on. Life might be a little bit different when we come out of it, but we are going to be stronger for it. And then finally, before we hear from our mayor, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our major series sponsor, Wipfli LLP, supporting series sponsors Ho-Chunk Gaming Madison, Michael Best and Friedrich, and State Bank of Cross Plains, and special contributors the Edgewater Hotel and UW Health, Unity Point Health Meritor, and Quartz for their support of DMI and downtown Madison. I would also like to thank today's rotating monthly sponsor, Reinhardt Berner Van Duren. We greatly appreciate Reinhardt for their support of today's program, and I would like to welcome Nathan Wadier, shareholder at Reinhardt and vice chair of the DMI board, to briefly say a few words. Nathan will be followed by Anita Mohammed of Wipfli LLP, followed by DMI president Jason Ilstrup to introduce the mayor. Thank you and welcome, Nathan.
Thank you, Doug. Reinhardt is proud to be a member of DMI and to be this month's sponsor of the Downtown Breakfast. Reinhardt is a Wisconsin-based full-service business law firm with over 200 attorneys. We draw upon that depth and experience to provide relevant counsel to our clients and communities. Today's breakfast is focused on the challenges and opportunities currently facing our Madison community. Let's listen closely to Mayor Rhodes Conway, and then let's get engaged. Let us draw upon our collective talent and resources to meet the challenges and seize the opportunities. Let's help build a stronger and more resilient Madison. On behalf of Reinhardt, thank you for supporting DMI and for your help in leading Madison forward.
Good morning. My name is Anita Mohammed, and I'm a partner with Wipfli LLP and member of the DMI Board of Directors. Wipfli is pleased to participate as the major sponsor of the DMI What's Up Downtown Breakfast Series. Thank you for joining us this morning. As a multidisciplinary professional services firm, Wipfli delivers effective, personalized services to help companies and organizations like yours through these trying times to help create lasting positive impact. We are here to help leaders like you navigate the ever-changing economic environment and have created a COVID-19 resource center that we invite you to visit at wipfli.com. Thank you for joining today's program, and I hope you are all safe and well.
Good morning, everyone. Jason Ilstrup, president of Downtown Madison. And it's my distinct pleasure to welcome all of you to the first ever virtual What's Up Downtown Breakfast. I hope that everyone, first and foremost, everyone and their families are doing well and staying healthy in these difficult times. Everyone's health is paramount, and we want to make sure that all of our members and all of our community stay and remain healthy. A huge thank you again to our sponsors, to Reinhardt, to Wipfli, and all the rest for all that you're doing to help us as an organization during these changing times. So thank you. Most importantly, thank you to all of you that are listening today. Over 300 people are taking part in our first ever virtual What's Up Downtown Breakfast. Without you, we would not be the organization we are today. Your creativity, your community drive, everything that you've done to help DMI reimagine itself over the last 6 weeks has been extraordinary. So from me and from the entire staff, thank you. You're still to help. We're working virtually during these struggling times to continue to make connections, which are more important than ever. We can do whatever we can to make sure that you are connected to our community. And last but certainly not least, we're continuing to advocate on your behalf. So please contact us if you need anything at all. A few housekeeping items, since this is our first ever virtual meeting. We are recording today's session, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, but know that only the speakers, so myself with my newly freshly shaved head, will be actually being recorded as the mayor is and the rest of our speakers. Second, we want to hear from you. We want to hear the questions that you have for our organization and for the mayor. So in your bottom of your screen, you'll see a question and answer, a Q&A function. Please submit your questions into the Q&A function for the mayor. Now, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome our mayor, who just celebrated her first year in office, Satya Rhodes Conway. Today, she'll talk about the city and their response to COVID-19, the impacts it's having on the city of Madison, and how our efforts in the business community and the community can help the city to reimagine itself and recover and be a great city again. So without further ado, Mayor Rhodes Conway.
Thank you, Jason, and thanks to Doug and Nathan and Anita as well, and to all of you on the line. It's good to virtually see everyone. I'm sure you all have your morning beverages with you as well, so happy breakfast. And I also want to add my thanks to the long list of people that Doug thanked. one of the interesting things about life in a pandemic is that the definition of frontline essential workers different than we think of, I think, normally. Certainly, we still thank our healthcare workers and our first responders, but now I feel like our frontline workers are people who are working in restaurants and doing delivery and cleaning grocery stores. And, you know, our clerk's office was certainly on the front line of the election. So I think it's highlighting the folks that keep us going every day, but even more so in these days. And so I thank all of them as well. We have been working at the city on COVID-19 since late January, early February, starting with you know, a real focus from the public health, Madison-Dane County, and as we tracked the pandemic, as it became a pandemic, and as we tracked the spread of the disease, you know, sort of moving outward into other departments. We've had our emergency operations center running for months now to track our response and coordinate it across departments and with other institutions across the community. Throughout, our top priority has been public health and making sure that we are guided by science and data, and that we are doing everything we can to slow the spread of the disease and preserve capacity in our healthcare system. And I just want to say that our healthcare system has been really incredible partners throughout this entire thing. They are doing a tremendous amount to create capacity to take care of anybody who has an emergency need, but certainly also anybody who contracts COVID-19. And we have really been focused on ways that we can support them in maintaining that capacity, particularly from a workforce point of view. So we've been a partner in standing up childcare solutions and transportation solutions for hospital workers. So public health, again, really on the top of our list in terms of priorities and what we're working on. Our next priority has been our workforce and making sure that the folks who work for the city are safe and that they can continue to provide essential services to all of our residents. So we, you know, perhaps even more than ever now need to make sure that our water is flowing to our homes and is safe and healthy to drink, and that the waste flows away and that the stormwater goes down the drain. And you know, there's a lot of different pieces to what the city does that need to continue. And so we've had to be really creative and find ways to do that that allow our workers to remain physically distant and to protect themselves while still providing services. And, you know, for some workers, that's obviously not possible. Our police and fire in particular have to come into contact with people regularly, and we're doing our best to provide them with the protective equipment that they need and the protocols to keep them safe. Another priority for us has been making sure that the folks that are most vulnerable in our community, whether that's because they're at high risk for COVID-19 or because they were vulnerable coming into a pandemic, that those folks are taken care of. So we've done a tremendous amount of work in very close partnership with the county to make sure that our homeless residents are housed to the extent possible, that those among them that are more vulnerable to the disease are actually in individual rooms. We're partnering with hotels all across the community, and we've transformed the Warner Park Community Center into a men's night shelter. And we're working hard to connect anybody who needs shelter to the appropriate form of shelter. So that's been a high priority. We're also trying to make sure that our seniors are still served, even though they can't come to our senior centers or participate in programming in person. Our senior center has been working very hard to do a lot of outreach to make sure that anybody who was getting meals at the senior center is getting them delivered, and that they have contact with folks regularly, and that they are sharing online opportunities for engagement and education and entertainment, but also making sure that folks have some personal contact. It's not even pen pals, right, if you do it over Zoom, but they're creating relationships between the seniors and younger folks who can check on them. And I have to say that so there's lots of examples, and I'll run through a few things that I think folks might want to know about, but one hallmark of, I think, the city's approach and our community's approach to this pandemic has been collaboration. And it's really heartening to see how much we're all working together. And so just some examples, I mentioned the collaboration with the healthcare systems. The county executive and I talk regularly. We've been in very close contact with the chancellor and the folks at UW, and working with them on as they respond to this. We are in close collaboration with the United Way, with the school district, who has amazingly turned around distance learning and providing food to their families in a very short time. I'm very impressed with what they've been able to do. And we're working closely with DMI and with the chamber to make sure that you all are getting the best information possible, and that we are thinking hard about what reopening and recovery looks like. So, and that's just, a sampling where there's a lot of partnerships going on and a lot of collaboration, and that is how we get through this thing, and it's how we come back stronger from it. So I want to just go through, Jason, a few things that I think folks might want to hear about, and then happy to take as many questions as we have time for. But just so you know a little bit more about the city's response, I mentioned that we stood up our Emergency Operations Center, and that is a cross-departmental team that meets virtually, as we all are doing these days. And it monitors the situation, the cases, the data that are coming in, it identifies problems, and people all across the city, so workers, department heads, et cetera, all across the city can refer problems up to the EOC. We triage those, figure out who's best equipped to deal with them, and then go ahead and start working on them. And we have a finance team, we have a logistics team that is managing all of our supplies in this time. And I'm sure you all know how challenging it has been to get personal protective equipment and cleaning supplies, and cities facing the same thing. But we have a whole section of folks that are hard at work on procuring what we need. We also have an operations section. These are the folks that built in very short order the table shields for the polling places, but they're doing a lot of other work as well. They've been instrumental in our response to how we're dealing with homeless folks. And then we have a planning section that has done tremendous work on preparing different policies around leave use and protecting our workforce and a number of other things. So it's a very robust structure. And one of the things, of course, you never really want to have to operate on an emergency basis, but one of the things that I've been really impressed with is the innovation and good work that happens when we get people from different departments working together. So that's been I think a real silver lining for me, and to hang on to. Even after we're not in a pandemic, that the power of collaboration is real. And I've been really appreciating watching that happen. We have been working a lot out of my office on state and federal advocacy. There's obviously a lot going on in terms of relief and recovery legislation at both levels. And so we've been working really hard with our representatives in DC to advocate for the resources that I feel like our community needs. And so certainly that's for city and county government, and for the university, for the school district, but also for small businesses, and making sure that there's enough resources coming through to the folks in our community that are really hurting. We've been I think partially successful. We have not gotten all that we wanted in the various COVID relief bills, but we keep trying, and we keep hearing that there is going to be another round. So I'm sure that you all are lobbying as well, and I just know that the city has small businesses on our list as a top priority for federal aid. We've also been at the state level. We advocated for the ability to give property tax relief in terms of the due dates and penalties. We did get not again everything we wanted, but we did get a version of relief, which we're now going to be working with the county to see what we can do to ease up a little bit on the deadlines and the penalties for property tax. And we're looking forward to how the economic impacts of this thing are going to play out, and starting to really press both the state and the federal government to look at housing assistance more broadly as we come out of, I should say maybe just rental assistance, because we're advocating for commercial properties as well. So as we get farther and farther into this thing, even if we are able to reopen, I think a lot of people are still going to be suffering economically, and we want to make sure that people don't get evicted, whether that's, again, from a residence or a storefront, as a result of this. So a long list of things that we're trying to press the state and federal government on. We are thinking a lot about, again, the economic impacts and what we can do immediately. And I assume that you all have seen the resources that are available through the partnership of DMI and the Chamber, Destination Madison, Dane Buy Local, et cetera. We're working closely with all of those organizations, and really encourage you to take advantage of the information that they're pushing out. We've done a number of different things on the city side to suspend costs for different licenses, to refund for people who've already paid, and to look at making our processes easier, cheaper, going into the summer. And it's very hard. Obviously, none of us know what exactly the trajectory of the disease will be here, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible for folks to, not owe the city money at this point in time. We have, I do want to just mention transit. Metro Transit is still running on a modified schedule, and that's because we consider it an essential service. And in particular, we've heard from the hospitals that it's essential for many of their workers to get to work. And so we're keeping it running, but at a reduced service levels and reduced capacity on each bus. We've also gone to backdoor boarding to protect our drivers and the passengers as well. So you'll still see the buses on the street, and that's what's going on there. We try to do a lot to keep our drivers and passengers safe. We also have changed some of our parking regulations, in particular to make it possible for restaurants to have, and other retailers to have pickup curbside, since I know that's a lot of how people are staying open right now. And we've taken the cashiers out of our garages so that they're not at risk. We are working through traffic engineering to expand capacity for pedestrians and bicycles across the city. We started seeing a noted lack of physical distancing on some of our multi-use paths, which is a very Madison thing. And normally I think it's great that we're getting that kind of traffic on our paths, but right now we need to make sure that people can stay far enough apart from each other. And so we're working to give them a little more space. Government continues. We have a number of city committees that continue to meet virtually. Our IT department has been working overtime to make it possible for us to meet via Zoom, but also still allow public comment and meet all of the open meetings laws. That's been complicated, to say the least. But they have come up with, I think, a really great solution. And now we're working to train all of our committee members, all of our committee staff, and make sure that they have the appropriate devices so that they can participate in meetings. And so we will be rolling out over the next, I'd say, 2 months, more and more committees that will start meeting again. I think, the other one thing that I wanted to mention was internet access. We have been working with a number of partners to make sure, firstly, that any Madison School District students have connections to the internet and to broadband so that they can participate in the distance learning and opportunities that the school district allows. And then obviously we would love to have everybody connected because that's how so many of us are working and conducting our lives these days. There are unfortunately a number of households in the city that are not connected yet. And we are working again in partnership to try and make sure that we can get as many as possible connected. And that's a real concern of mine because it's such an essential service right now. I want to talk a little bit about reopening and recovery. I hope you've all seen the governor's Badger Bounce Back plan, which I think reflects a lot of our thinking on how we would think about reopening and recovery. What I am really focused on is, I think that there's a lot of people want to know, what's the date? When are we reopening? When can we get back to normal? And so first of all, it's not about a date, it's about the data. There's a number of data that we're tracking very closely that will tell us when it's safe for us to reopen. And then the second thing I really want to emphasize is that this is not about flipping a switch. It's not like one day we're in lockdown and the next day we're back to normal. Just as we sort of went into the public health orders by first, no gatherings over 250 people, and then no gatherings over 50 people, and then no gatherings over 10 people, and then no gatherings at all. We will ease back out probably in the same way. And that's what the governor's indicated, is that the first step is that you could have gatherings of 10 people. And then you sort of go up from there. So I think we eased into this, we'll ease out of it. We'll carefully monitor the data, and we may need to go back and forth if we start to see significant spread again, or if we start to see capacity in our healthcare system going down, we may need to come back into more restrictive situation. But just so people know, the things that we're really watching, obviously we're watching our case count, but we're also watching our test count, and we're watching our testing capacity. And so we've been pushing pretty hard locally to increase testing capacity and to increase the number and type of folks that are able to get tested. I think we're not quite ready to make announcements on this yet, but in the not too distant future, I think you'll see some good news on that front. But testing is definitely one of the criteria. We have to really be able to test anybody that we need to before we can think about reopening. And then hospital capacity is another one of the criteria. We need to be confident that our healthcare system can absorb new cases and that everybody's getting adequate care. And then we do want to see a flattening in the number of new cases for a sustained period of time, looking at 2 weeks or so before we would want to think about reopening. So our public health department is watching very carefully on all of these things and more, and we're working with the state. My office has meetings with the governor's office on 2 or 3 times a week. And so we will do our best, obviously, to open things up again slowly, but as soon as we possibly can, really be driven by data and by public health. So what does that mean for all of you and everybody else in Madison? I think it means that we need to continue to be as creative and innovative as possible in how we do business. even when the governor's orders start to be lifted in various ways, we're still, I think, going to have real restrictions on how many people can be gathered together. We're probably going to need to be wearing face coverings. We're certainly going to need to clean everything more often, and to think creatively about just the places where multiple hands touch something. So, you know, not to pick on anybody in particular, but my partner Amy and I happen to love the tofu buns from Umami. And so we've been getting takeout from Taverna Kaya on the square, which combined with Umami. And I'm super impressed with how they set things up. They have their first front door propped open, and then their interior door, they installed a little gizmo where you can open it with your foot. So you don't have to touch the door going in. They've rearranged all their furniture so that your takeout is right there, and you're more than 6 feet from any of the folks working there. And so you just open the door with your foot, go in, grab your bag, and you're good to go. I know many other restaurants and businesses around the city have done similar things, but that's that kind of thing that we're going to have to think about. How do we reduce touch points? How do we reduce contact between people? How do we maintain physical distancing? How do we make sure that everything is sanitized, that there's you know, hand sanitizer available as you walk into every building? You know, these are the things that we're going to have to think about. So now it's not too early, I think, for businesses to be thinking about these things. Certainly, I know many of you have moved online, and I think that's great. So we need to collectively think about how do we move online, how do we advertise that we've moved online, and how do we really impress upon our community that they shouldn't be buying from some of those nasty large online retailers, but rather they should be buying from our own local retailers that are just as easy to order from online. Again, just a shout out, I ordered a bunch of stuff from the soap opera. First of all, hey, great selection. Lots of stuff that I didn't know that I needed. And second of all, super easy to do online and delivered to my doorstep. Like, what's not to like about that? So I appreciate that. We've been doing a lot of takeout. I appreciate all the restaurants that are keeping us fed, both at home but also we're doing lunch takeout in the office these days. So, but anyway, I think people are being really creative, and I think we're going to need to continue to be really creative because, again, as we come out of this, it's going to be slow, but it is going to happen eventually, and we are all going to get through this. But again, the way we're going to get through it is together. And so I appreciate organizations like DMI that bring us together and allow us to share best practices and ideas and good information. So I probably have said far too much. I'll wrap up, but let me just remind you all, wash your hands, sanitize. I've got my little bottle right here, so it doesn't hurt to do a little refresh. And please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of your families. You know, Madison is a really strong city. We do have a strong economy, and we are going to get through this.
Mayor, thank you very much. Not only for everything in your leadership. Your leadership has been outstanding in these difficult times. And as a resident of Madison, I'm very thankful. As an organization, I'm very thankful for your leadership as well. Also for the leadership throughout the entire city as well. You mentioned essential services, really, the definition has changed, right? Transit is now an essential service. And thank you to Tom Lynch and the teams there. So thank you. I have to say, the number 1, number 2, number 3 questions were not questions. They were all just saying thank you to the mayor. So I think that's very important to say. This is a difficult time, and your leadership has been fantastic. And also, thank you from the downtown businesses as well for supporting it and eating lunch and going to soap opera or Little Luxuries or Fontana, whatever that is. Those purchases absolutely make a difference. They keep the lights on, they keep the rent paid, they keep people employed. This is paramount. As my great friend, Tiffany Kinney, the executive director of the BID, says just 10 to 20 more people per day go to each of these restaurants, it can make all the difference and really make sure we have the city we want after we get back to relative normal. So please continue to support downtown. Now, the first question is about how do we sort of reimagine and restart our economy, right? I think this is a really important question. And the question is, what are the strategies for jump-starting our economy? And how can the private sector help? Because you talked about the power of collaboration being real. And I couldn't agree more. There's been a tremendous amount of collaboration. So are there partners like DMI, the Chamber, the BID, Latino Chamber, the Black Chamber, Dane by Local, that can help the city manage to reopen the economy?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll want to continue working with all those partners to make sure that we are really aware of what the barriers are, what the problems are, and how we can collectively overcome them. We're thinking about a lot of things on this side. I have to say, Jason, it's been, our immediate work was really just about keeping people alive, and making sure that we were doing everything from a public health point of view to slow the spread of the virus. And then the next piece of work was really about, okay, how do we operate as a city in the process of a pandemic? But now we are really turning our thinking to reopening and recovery. And so we're not quite ready to unveil everything yet, but we are thinking hard about what the city can do to support small businesses and over, not just say the next 6 months, but the next 3 years. And because I do think we're going to need that kind of sustained support and collaboration. The economic impacts of this are not going to go away in a short period of time. But we are thinking about how we transform the programs that we already had or we're planning to be more appropriate for this time. I think personally just about how do we have that conversation with the residents of Madison about supporting local business, right? And how do we leverage the work, for example, that Dane by Local has done, but expand that dramatically so that everybody understands how important it is to support local businesses. I also think about how do we think about our supply chains here from our large institutions down to our smallest businesses and making them more resilient and making them more local because we know each other, and if we can give each other business and keep each other alive, I think that that's a potentially really positive thing in our community. So, the city has a buy local policy. I think, we could look at how we expand that, how we work with other institutions to do the same thing. This is, frankly, both from a business perspective, but also just a resilience perspective. We have seen supply chain issues, I think, in a number of different ways. And so making sure that we have local options for the things we need, I think, is really important. One place that I think about that in particular is in the food system. And working, we already have such a strong local food economy, but working to localize it even further and to strengthen connections with local farmers and institutions. And to, food is obviously essential. So making sure that that essential business is as strong as possible locally and doesn't rely on other places and whatever they're doing in response to the pandemic for us to make sure that people in Madison have food. So anyway, I think that there's a lot more to come and a lot of ways in which we'll be hoping to partner certainly with DMI, but with other organizations as well. One thing that I look at is whether we can support collectively, the city and other institutions can support small businesses in, again, staying in their storefronts or their locations. And even, I know it sounds sort of counterintuitive, but even buying their storefronts and locations so that they have longer term, more stability. So just one example of some of the ideas that we're tossing around here.
I think it's important, I don't like to use the term recovery. I like to talk about it as restarting or reimagining. I think this is a seismic change in our economy. And this is a time where we can really look at what our priorities are. And it's some of the things, you know, you've said, right? Building back the economy that we want. What are Madison's priorities? It's good to hear that, you know, local business is such a priority. The next series of questions.
Top of the list for the economy, Jason, top of the list.
Awesome, awesome. One of the, I think, tried and true ways for economic restart and reimagining is through development, right? Through construction. We've seen this throughout time. Do you see development as a way to kickstart the economy, a way of moving forward? How do we keep those wheels of development moving? I think that's an important question right now. With, you know, I think public participation is critical to the development process, but how do you find creative ways to keep it going? Because we know that construction is a huge part of any economic recovery.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, you know, the way that I think about it is that there are sets of industries that that we need to keep going, right? And so here in Madison, you think about, you know, government is a major employer, and, you know, more or less stable, although I'll tell you our budget's a mess right now. But, you know, we want to keep people employed from government because that's an infusion of money into the economy. And similarly, I think we want to keep people employed in construction, because again, that's an influx of money into our economy, and particularly again, if we can encourage the development and construction industry to localize their supply chains as much as possible and keep that money flowing in our community. But yes, we are, from the public works side, we did take a brief pause on contracts, but we're back to normal now. We issued a set of guidelines to make sure that workers on construction sites are safe. And so our public works is proceeding apace, and will continue to do so. In fact, we're looking at if there are ways that we can move some projects faster to take advantage of the fact that there's so few cars on the streets right now. So we've got a number of things underway there that we're trying to make sure that we keep those contracts flowing from the city. In terms of land use development and the approval processes, we do have all of our committees in that process meeting again, some of them not as frequently as they used to. But again, we're looking at sort of getting that back to something more like normal in the next month or two. In terms of public participation, you know, this has traditionally been up to the alder of the district, and there's a number of alders that have had, according to them, quite successful virtual neighborhood meetings. And so I think we'll start to see that more. And I know the council office is working with the council members to maybe set up some standards around that, or you know, some best practices so that they can facilitate online engagement. Now, I will say there are some alders that, and some projects for which they feel like, because of who's interested, because of the demographics of their residents, that they're less interested in having virtual meetings and more interested in waiting until that can be in person. But, you know, personally, I think that in-person meetings are going to be months away. So we're definitely encouraging people to at least try the virtual options and see if that can get to the people who they need to get to. But yes, I think that we'll see a little bit of a slowdown in the development process just because we did have to cancel some committee meetings while we were figuring out how to take them online. But we should be back to a somewhat regular pace within the next couple of months. And we are looking, I would say that the time horizon is a little bit longer on this, but we are looking at that whole process and you know, how we were looking at it before the pandemic, and you know, so it's just even more important now to figure out if there's ways that we can make it easier for folks to develop the kinds of projects the city is looking for. And you know, pre-pandemic, that was mostly focused on affordable housing. I think post-pandemic, it certainly will continue to be focused on affordable housing, but we'll also need to look at if there are other priorities that we're that we're particularly interested in. So we haven't abandoned that work. It's just taken a little pause.
Thank you for recognizing how important development is, particularly for downtown as well. And I think it matters for the next question. We've had several questions on the city finance, right? What are new possible revenues? And development certainly handles that. Anticipating extraordinary revenue losses, right, which we're having right now, and significantly higher expenses in the city. What cost containment or new revenue strategies have the city taken to preserve their financial resources and stay in financial health and continue to have the priorities that they would like?
So, the city of Madison actually is I'm not feeling lucky, but in comparison, we're fairly lucky. We went into this thing in a really relatively strong financial position. We had a good fund balance. We're not in danger of running out of cash. But we are, going to have to dip pretty deep into our reserves. We are losing a lot of revenue. And we do have massively increased expenses. Just for example, the clerk's office budget for postage for the election was $8,000. We spent over $120,000 on postage, and expect that number will go up for the August election and for the November election. So yeah, it's going to be incredibly tough financial situations. And as most of you will remember from the last budget cycle, the city has very, very few revenue options. And we have mostly exhausted them at this point in time. So of course we'll, look under the couch cushions for quarters, but, and by which I mean, we'll look again for any new revenue options. But a lot of this is going to have to be on cutting expenditures, unfortunately. And so we are taking steps now to reduce any non-essential expenditures, to very closely study hires. We've already encouraged departments, instead of filling vacant positions, could we redeploy somebody from another department in the city who is not working on essential work, to cover, in a sort of cross-departmental collaboration. And we will be looking very closely at any new hires. That's just it's an easier way of trying to contain costs than some other options. But we are going to have to make some hard decisions. I am still hopeful that for this budget, we're not going to have to do anything too dramatic, but for next year, there's going to be some very hard decisions. And I don't want to talk about impacts to our workforce, but we are definitely going to have to consider what our options are. But again, stay focused on public health and on essential services, and continuing to provide the core services that people expect of the city. But I'm not going to lie, it's going to be a very challenging situation.
Well, thank you for your leadership, and thank you today for participating. Obviously, these are very difficult times for many of our members and many of our community. We are here as an organization to help however we can. But I wanted to add just a bit of levity right at the end here. If you haven't seen, the mayor participated in the Safe Hands Challenge. You can find it on our Twitter feed, you can find it on probably your Instagram feed, and she did an amazing job of singing Hamilton while washing her hands. So I was going to ask her if she wanted to do a duet with me. Potentially we could be, Dolly and Kenny. We could be, Ashford and Simpson, Sonny and Cher. I have a terrible voice. You have a beautiful voice, but I'm more than willing. So Mayor, what do you say?
I mean, I'd be happy to do a duet with you, Jason, but my repertoire is relatively limited.
Well, my singing voice is even more limited. You can ask my wife or anyone on the team, but I just wanted to say thank you for at least providing some humor during these difficult times for many people. I want to again say thank you to the mayor, and again know that DMI is here to help however we can. We're very excited to be partners with you, and anything we can do to extend that partnership, please let us know. Again, we have resources on our website for all of our members and all of our community to make sure they get through these difficult times. The COVID-19 resource page is updated daily, as you heard from the mayor. We're working very closely with the city, public health, the chamber, all of the chambers, Stand By Local, the BID, you name it. So check out that website, on our website, www.madison.org. It's updated daily. And to wrap up, we have to make sure we thank our sponsors. Thank you so much for your continued sponsorship. Without you, we would not be here today. To Wipfli LLP, to Ho Chunk Gaming Madison, to Michael Beston Friedrich, the State Bank of Cross Plains, Reinhardt Law Offices, the Edgewater Hotel, UW Health, Unity Point Health, Mariner, and Courts. And again, we appreciate all of you attending here today. Know that we are having, honestly, 5 to 10 virtual meetings a week. So please check our website. We've got great meetups happening on fitness and small group discussions for businesses. We've got all of our committees meeting online. Please join us for those conversations. We are trying to make connections and provide resources for our members. So please make sure you check out our website for everything that's coming up. Most importantly, we hope that everyone remains safe and does well in these difficult days ahead. If you need anything from us, please let us know. But again, thank you for your continued support.